Germany's national elections are less than 2 months away, and with Angela Merkel stepping down, the country is gearing up for a new chancellor. In the running are Armin Laschet for the Conservatives, Olaf Scholz for the centre-left SPD, and Annalena Baerbock for the Greens. Germans can't elect the chancellor directly. The parliament does that. Nevertheless, voters have a clear preference, and it's not Armin Laschet. His ratings have plummeted by 8 percentage points, putting him on 20%. Olaf Scholz of the SPD has gone up in people's views. He's now on 35%. And just 16% want Annalena Baerbock of the Greens to become chancellor. Well, to make sense of all this, I'm joined now by our chief political correspondent, Melinda Crane, from our parliamentary studios. Melinda, Conservative candidate Armin Laschet has long been considered the front-runner to succeed Chancellor Merkel. Should he be worried now?
Yes, he definitely needs to be concerned. That 8-point drop is a sign that his campaign is in trouble and that he hasn't been able to recover from some unfortunate images that showed him laughing in the background as Germany's president spoke to flood survivors. Now, as you said, in Germany's parliamentary democracy, voters elect parties, not individual candidates. And Mr. Laschet's party, the CDU, still looks pretty strong in the polls. Nonetheless, preferences on leadership play a role for undecided voters, and 1 in 4 voters still isn't sure how they're going to vote. If they break for one of the other parties because of their distaste for Laschet, it could be bad news for him and for his party. And just for comparison, at this point in her first campaign, Angela Merkel's approval rating was at 57%. That's 33% points higher than Mr. Laschet's. And by the way, her ratings still remain very strong, despite the fact that satisfaction with the government is lukewarm.
Okay, very different picture for Olaf Scholz of the Social Democrats. He's flying rather high in the polls right now. Could that end up tipping the scales in his favor?
Yes, it could, once again, depending on how the undecided voters move. Here in Berlin, the pundits are starting to talk about Scholz emerging as the potential leader of a coalition of Social Democrats, Liberal, Free Democrats, and Greens. And Terry, you'll remember that Germans are fond of naming coalitions according to the party's colors. That particular constellation is being called a traffic light, red, yellow, green. At the moment, it is just short of a majority, but there are still over 7 weeks to go till the election.
Yeah, we'll see if Olaf Scholz gets a go there on that traffic light. Well, when it comes to political party preferences, Melinda, the picture in Germany, of course, looks a bit different, as you pointed out. The conservative CDU-CSU bloc is polling around 27% of the vote. That's the most right now. The center-left Social Democrats are on 18%, 3 percentage points more than they polled last month, so they're picking up. And the far-right AfD is polling 10%, the FDP 12%. The Socialist Left Party is at 6%, and the Greens, well, they're still in second place, but their support has dropped this month. They're at 19%. Melinda, the Greens were ahead of the Conservatives some weeks ago in some polls. Are they still in the running for the chancellorship?
I don't think we can rule that out, but it is unlikely because after that strong start you just mentioned, they have been languishing in the polls, not least due to some false steps by their chancellor candidate, Annalena Baerbock. A rather complicated procedural dispute in one of the federal states that came to the fore this week could cost them a very significant number of votes in September. So the chances are looking slim. But at the very least, the Greens could well wind up as kingmaker, tipping the scales in favor of either a CDU or an SPD-led coalition. So that's an important role nonetheless.
A major campaign issue, Melinda, is the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, what now seems less likely to divide voters is party support for the coronavirus vaccines. German society had been split on the question, but confidence in the vaccine seems to be growing. 83% of people in Germany now say they want to be vaccinated or have already been. 8% categorically reject vaccination. Linda, what's your takeaway when you look at these numbers on willingness to get vaccinated?
Clearly, the acceptance rate is quite high, I think higher than many of us would have expected. And what that tells me is that the debate we've been seeing lately about how to boost the number of people getting the jab should revolve a good deal less around vaccination acceptance than about how to actually get shots into arms. Politicians have absolutely been focusing on the former, perhaps in part because they don't always have good solutions for the latter, for how to actually make sure that people are getting access to the vaccine. Because clearly, some of the skeptics have now waited and looked at the results and decided maybe this isn't such a bad thing after all, but not everybody has an opportunity to get the shot.
Melinda, thank you so much. Our chief political correspondent, Melinda Craig.